This is Dan Ferrisi, editor with Sound and Communications Magazine. Happy to be joined by Chuck Wilson, Executive Director and CEO of NSCA. Thanks for joining me, Chuck. Really appreciate the time.
Well, thanks for having me, Dan. I appreciate you reaching out to me.
As always, on this series of video interviews, the topic is COVID-19, how the commercial AV industry is adapting and trying to find its way through this very treacherous terrain. The first question I have for you, Chuck, is we recently had a piece by Mike Abernathy from NSCA published on our site. It was very interesting. In the beginning of the article, he mentioned that at BLC at the end of February, the executives there seemed to be very optimistic. They were even talking about how to manage growth if it was more than they could handle. Now we're in a very, very different situation. Just how quickly have things changed in the commercial AV industry?
Well, they literally changed overnight. It felt like, and BLC feels like it was a year ago instead of 5 weeks ago. The thing, like to Mike's point, is that we had record growth, record backlog, record, everything was on this uptick, and then all of a sudden here we are with things shutting down. So yeah, it's been something. It's been a real struggle for our members, to decide, do they maintain employment and get the, apply for, many have received already the PPP loans where they have to keep their employee status fairly level until the end of June. Others immediately started to furlough or lay off people. So it just went, and it's kind of ironic with like our Ignite program is it was our big thing designed to bring new people into the industry. We had a shortage of talent and all that. Now Ignite has done a 180 where we're trying to help people find jobs that are already in the industry. So what a turn of events that was.
I'm sure you're in day-to-day contact with your members, your peers in the industry. What are you hearing? I mean, obviously, as you say, there are some programs that are going on right now, financial programs, PPP, things of that nature. Are you finding optimism, cautious though it might be? Are you hearing pessimism? What is the mood out there among your members, who I think are a very, very representative sample of commercial AV as an entire industry?
Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty there. It's so weird is that depending on what our members do, some are busy as ever, some have nothing to do. So it's just very bizarre how it is so different by vertical markets. So what we've been tracking is how shallow, how deep the decline was or is for certain vertical markets, and then how short or how prolonged it's going to be. And so we're finding, like in transportation, the communication sector, education, healthcare, public safety, control and command stuff, is we're seeing a very, very shallow decline, and it's going to rapidly go back to close to where it was very soon, as opposed to like the house of worship or anything to do with amusement parks or recreation, sporting venues, lodging, office, corporate environment. We're seeing those being a very deep decline, and then probably a bit of a prolonged thing. So you've heard us talking about the May reboot coming up, or the summer U-shaped recovery. So we're talking reboot and recovery sometime this summer. And what we're following is the new construction renovation. So we work with FMI, our research company, and we work with Dr. Keel, our economist, to talk about where those two things intersect and how the gap looks between the reboot, if we have it at the end of May, to where we start an upward growth pattern again, getting able to get out and work on projects, or more of a slower rebuild at more towards the end of June, that time frame where it's a slower recovery pattern based on the summer time frame, I guess. So we've been working on a lot of that.
Yeah, and so much of it is still unknown. The speed with which a vaccine might come about, the extent to which people who have been infected are immune or not immune. There's so many different factors that are well beyond the scope of our industry, but that will have such a tremendous effect on our ability either to ramp up or not ability to do so.
That's right.
In terms of NSCA's offerings to its members, I know the piece I was talking about by Mike Abernathy was talking about the business continuity resources that NSCA is putting forth. Can you talk a little bit about what NSCA is offering to its members and to the industry as a whole, as far as resources they can depend on? Obviously, we're familiar with what the federal government and state and local governments are trying to do, but what is NSCA doing in terms of gathering resources and offering resources?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our immediate action has been to focus on three areas where we look at our role as an essential workforce, and we go state by state. We're even looking into some municipalities that are changing from the state requirements and stuff. So we took our team at NSCA, and we've each taken different states, and looking into Canada as well, and just taking it apart and saying, okay, what can we do? And then we have the templates, we have sample letters that our members now have that they can download to have with their employees to keep in their vehicles and stuff, and for them to carry, stating their essential workforce status. And then we're looking also at the employment decisions our members have to make, whether they do furloughs, layoffs, use the PPP funding in order to keep their workforce in place, and then trying to work with them, the ones that have received that funding, on the next 8 weeks, what that really looks like in terms of come June 30th, how well positioned they're going to be to be sustaining. Our goal was to get each and every one of our members to sustain and to survive this crisis that we have. So we've been focused on that, which led us into the third component of what we're doing, which is this financial stress test process. So we dig deep into a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day window of what their cash flow will look like. So the liquidity available of either additional line of credit, or using the funding from the government, or doing anything we can do to help get them a good look at what they're doing in terms of daily cash burns, and how solid their accounts receivable is, what happens when their DSO or their aged receivables, if they go beyond 90 days, what does that do to their liquidity and stuff. So companies, and on a very confidential one-on-one basis, is we're just looking at a snapshot of where they're at today, where we think they'll be 30 days from now, 60, 90, and then how that matches with the recovery. So that's really been our big thing. But how we get the data, it's really important for us, we feel, to not allow or to not just join in with everybody and throw out a whole bunch of generic stuff. Everything that you'll see on our business continuity program, that landing page we developed, it's all been distilled down through the lens of our industry experts, through our board members, our leaders of this industry, and we take it and we distill it to what exactly is important for the integrators right now. And that's the difference between what we're doing and just sending links to the hundreds and hundreds of resources that are out there available to people.
And I'll tell viewers that you can obviously access those business continuity resources through nsca.org, or if you go to Sound and Communications and read Mike Abernathy's article, there's a direct link to that business continuity resources page. Yep. Well, Chuck, I think you're one of the leaders of the industry, one of the recognized leaders. I've known you since the beginning of my career in 2004. And I think people look to you, and people like you, the senior statesmen of the industry, in times of crisis. They look to you for advice, for wisdom, for words of comfort, for words of solace. In these times, which are really as trying as we've ever seen, both macroeconomically and in the industry, what advice or words of wisdom would you give to integrator members, consultants, distributors, manufacturers, people who are looking to people like you?
Well, I think, we've been talking a lot about transparency, as being a voice of the steady, calm, we'll get through this thing with your people, making sure that you spend as much time as you can, over communicate within your company, really focus on what to do now, look forward, use our data points, use the research that we've talked about with the recovery period, the rebooting of this, really focus on how we lead during this crisis, the things that we can be doing to get revenue coming in the door, focusing on great ways to be creative with revenue sources. If a company has had the benefit of the PPP funding, they've got, most of them have that money now in their bank account. So be very mindful. Use that mantra that cash is king, right? So we're trying to make sure that we optimize the cash that we do have. Be thoughtful about how we use any kind of expenditures that will generate revenue rather than investing in something that isn't a priority right now. So I think it's about leadership, and it's about, being that advisor to the rest of the team about what to do and how to be productive. We at the start, a month or two ago, we were talking about what to do when there's too much to do. Now we're talking about what to do when there's nothing to do, it seems. And so we're thinking about ways that everybody in our organization can be productive, earn their paycheck that they are able to get if we are keeping our people on board, and just being that great leader and that hopeful, inspirational person that lets our team know that we will get through this at some point.
Well, as an industry observer, I think NSCA and you have been doing a really good job trying to be that industry leader, trying to be that advisor. I thank you for taking the time to share your insights with Sound and Communications audience, for making your team like Mike available to POVs and articles for us. I think it's really essential at this time. I mean, we're a communications industry. To keep up the lines of communication, both verbal and written, make sure we do our mind sharing to the greatest extent possible, strategize together. 2021, we're all gathered at BLC. We can look at back on this as a long lasting effects. That's my hope. Who knows if that'll be the case, but I think we're all going to try to swim in the same direction and make that happen.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for allowing me to do this, and thanks for you communicating this with our industry. So what you do as a media partner is really, really important right now too. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you again, Chuck. Chuck Wilson, Executive Director and CEO of NSCA. Thank you so much for your time. Be well. All the best to your team and your family.
Thank you.